The installation took 3 weeks and attracted plenty of attention from neighbors. Heavy equipment, specialized tools, and a team of skilled workers transformed Michael's backyard. Patricia watched from her window with increasing concern, making several calls to the HOA management company to inquire about what was happening. Each time, she received the same answer. Michael had submitted all proper paperwork, and his project was in compliance with HOA regulations. He was covering his pool as required. On the day the glass panels were finally installed, Michael hosted a small gathering of neighbors, conspicuously excluding Patricia, to showcase his new safety feature. The design was stunning. At the push of a button, the clear panels slid smoothly across the pool surface, creating what appeared to be a floating glass floor over the water. But the pièce de résistance was the extended viewing platform that jutted toward Patricia's property line, offering users a perfect elevated view directly into her garden, the same garden she had been so protective of, often shooing away curious neighbors or children who wandered too close. Day 1 of installation began with a fleet of trucks arriving at 7:00 a.m. sharp, precisely when the HOA noise ordinance permitted construction to begin. Michael had coffee waiting for the crew and introduced himself to each worker, making sure they understood both the technical requirements and the importance of the project. "Good morning, Mr. Davidson," called out Raj Patel, the project supervisor, as his team unloaded specialized equipment. "Beautiful day to start your pool transformation." Within hours, Patricia's first appearance came as expected. She stood at the edge of her property, arms crossed, watching as workers began installing the support framework. "Excuse me," she called out to Raj. "Do you have proper permits for this work?" Michael approached before Raj could answer. "Good morning, Patricia. Yes, all permits are in order. Would you like to see the copies? I have them right here." He held up a neatly organized folder. Patricia ignored the folder. "What exactly are you building? This looks far more extensive than a simple pool cover." "It is a pool cover," Michael replied pleasantly. "A rather innovative one, but a cover nonetheless. I'm simply complying with the new HOA requirement." By the end of the first week, the support structure was complete, and Patricia had filed 2 complaints with the city inspector, who visited and found everything in compliance. By the second week, as the first glass panels arrived, each carefully wrapped and requiring 6 workers to position, Patricia had called an emergency HOA meeting that failed to reach quorum when several members, coincidentally, had prior commitments. The third week brought the final installation phase and Patricia's increasingly frantic attempts to stop the project. She even approached Michael's wife in the grocery store. "This has gone far enough," Patricia hissed between the produce sections. "Tell Michael to stop this ridiculous display." Lisa calmly selected a cucumber. "It's not a display, Patricia. It's a pool cover, exactly what you required." On the final day, as the last panel slid into place with a satisfying click, Michael stepped back to admire the work. The glass cover was nearly invisible from most angles, revealing the shimmering blue water beneath. Only the slim tracks and the control panel indicated anything had been installed at all. That evening, Michael sent out text invitations for a pool cover compliance celebration the following Saturday. Within an hour, 20 neighbors had RSVP'd yes. Jim from next door added, "Never thought I'd be excited about a pool cover, but this I gotta see." As twilight fell, Michael tested the cover's LED perimeter lighting, a feature he'd added at the last minute. The subtle blue glow outlined the glass panels and the extended viewing platform, which now seemed to float magically above his yard, and, at its furthest point, directly over Patricia's prized roses. From his deck, Michael could see Patricia standing at her bay window, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing angrily. He raised his glass of bourbon in a silent toast. Patricia was livid. She immediately called an emergency HOA meeting, claiming Michael had maliciously circumvented the rules. But when board members visited to inspect, they found nothing to object to. The pool was indeed covered when not in use, exactly as required. The glass was high quality, professionally installed, and met all safety standards. The extended platform was technically within Michael's property limits. "This is not what we meant by a pool cover." Patricia fumed during the meeting. The bylaw doesn't specify what type of cover is required. Michael calmly replied. Only that it must be appropriate. This is appropriate, safe, and aesthetically pleasing. In the weeks that followed, Michael's innovative solution became something of a local legend. Neighbors would casually drop by, ostensibly to chat, but really to admire the glass cover, and perhaps stroll onto the viewing platform, where they could wave cheerfully down at Patricia as she worked in her garden below. Eventually, Patricia put her house up for sale. The day the SOLD sign appeared, Michael received another letter from the HOA, this time thanking him for his creative compliance and informing him that the pool cover bylaw had been revised with more specific language. Michael smiled as he read it. The cost of his extravagant pool cover had been worth every penny, not just for the satisfaction of outsmarting a neighborhood tyrant, but for reclaiming the peace of his community. The new HOA president, his neighbor with the legal background, had promised a more reasonable approach to neighborhood governance. That summer, the sounds of splashing and laughter returned to Michael's backyard, untroubled by complaints, and on particularly hot days, he still occasionally deployed his glass cover, inviting neighbors to enjoy the unique view, no longer of Patricia's garden, but of the beautiful pool below and the clear blue sky above. Saturday's pool cover compliance celebration exceeded even Michael's expectations. Nearly 40 neighbors crowded his backyard, many bringing food and drinks to contribute to the impromptu block party. Children squealed with delight as they carefully walked across the glass surface, peering down at the water 6 feet below. "It's like walking on air," exclaimed 10-year-old Zoe from down the street. Gerald, the HOA secretary, approached Michael with a glass of punch. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. "Brilliant engineering." "Just complying with regulations," Michael replied with a wink. The festivities were in full swing when Patricia made her unexpected appearance. A hush fell over the gathering as she marched up to Michael's deck, clipboard in hand. "This is an unauthorized gathering," she announced loudly. The HOA bylaws clearly state that events with more than 20 attendees require prior board approval. Before Michael could respond, Dorothy from the HOA board stepped forward. "Actually, Patricia, we amended that rule last month. The threshold is now 50 people, and this gathering appears to be under that limit." Patricia's face flushed crimson. "That's not the point. This monstrosity," she gestured wildly at the glass cover, "is clearly not what the board intended." "But it's what the board approved," Marcus Liu pointed out, joining the conversation. "I have the signed documentation right here." The following Tuesday, Patricia listed her house with a realtor. By Friday, a pending sign was added. 3 weeks later, as moving trucks loaded her furniture, Michael hosted a much smaller gathering, just the HOA board members minus Patricia, on his glass platform. "I propose a toast," said Marcus, who had been elected the new HOA president after Patricia's resignation, "to reasonable governance and creative problem-solving." As they clinked glasses, Gerald handed Michael an envelope. "The board voted unanimously on this. I think you'll be pleased." Inside was a certificate naming Michael's glass pool cover the Sycamore Heights Architectural Innovation of the Year, and a formal letter reversing several of Patricia's more draconian rules. 6 months later, Michael received a holiday card from Patricia's former next-door neighbor. Inside was a photo of Patricia's new house, in a neighborhood with no pool in sight, and more importantly, no HOA. Michael pinned the card to his refrigerator with a magnet, a reminder that sometimes the best revenge wasn't just about winning the battle, but about changing the rules of engagement for everyone. That spring, 3 more glass pool covers appeared in Sycamore Heights, each one approved promptly by the new HOA board. Michael spent weeks researching and consulting with specialists. The plan would be expensive, about as costly as the pool itself had been, but the satisfaction would be priceless. He hired an architectural engineer and a custom glass fabrication company. The design was ingenious, a retractable pool cover made of reinforced, crystal-clear glass, strong enough to walk on but utterly transparent. When extended, it would cover his pool completely, but offer a perfect view through to the water below. More importantly, due to the slope of his yard and some clever engineering, The cover would extend partially over his property line, creating a walkable glass platform that provided a direct view into Patricia's prized garden. All of this was completely legal. He'd checked the zoning laws and property boundaries meticulously. The glass extension technically qualified as a non-permanent structure that didn't violate any setback requirements. "If she wants my pool covered," Michael told his wife as they reviewed the final plans, "we'll give her exactly what she asked for, and a bit more." The price tag made Michael wince. $47,000 was no small sum. But as his brother-in-law Kevin explained while they reviewed the technical drawings in Michael's home office, this wasn't just a pool cover, it was architectural art. The structural glass panels will be 3 inches thick, laminated with an internal resin layer, Kevin explained, gesturing to the cross-section diagram. It's the same material used in high-end aquarium displays and tourist attractions like the Grand Canyon Skywalk. You could park a car on it. Michael's wife Lisa studied the 3D rendering with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Are you sure about this, Mike? It's a lot of money for revenge." "It's not just revenge," Michael insisted, though the gleam in his eye suggested otherwise. "It's an investment in our property. Think about it. We'll have a pool we can use year-round, since the glass will create a greenhouse effect in winter. Plus, we gain additional entertainment space with the extended platform." Lisa raised an eyebrow skeptically, but didn't argue further. After 15 years of marriage, she knew when Michael had set his mind to something. The next day, Michael met with Eliza Chen from Modern Glass Innovations. Her portfolio included custom installations for museums and luxury homes across the state. Most residential clients want frosted or tinted glass for privacy, Eliza noted as they discussed options. "You're sure you want completely transparent panels?" "Absolutely certain," Michael replied. "Crystal clear is essential." When she showed him the samples of edge treatments, Michael selected the most minimal option, a thin stainless steel frame that would be nearly invisible from a distance. And for the extension portion, Michael continued, unfolding the property survey map. "I wanted to cantilever exactly to this point." He indicated a spot that, while technically within his property line, would position viewers directly above Patricia's award-winning rose garden. Eliza studied the topographical lines. "The slope works in our favor here. We can anchor the support structure well within your property, but achieve the viewing angle you want." As they finalized details, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Patricia just filed a complaint about your lawn being 1/4 inch too high. Figured you'd want to know." Michael smiled as he showed Eliza where to sign the contract. "Please add the rush production option," he said calmly. "I'd like installation to begin as soon as possible." On his way home, Michael stopped by the hardware store for a new lawnmower blade. He'd comply with Patricia's lawn complaint to the letter, while his real plan took shape behind the scenes. Sometimes, the best strategy was to appear to surrender while secretly preparing your masterstroke. Michael Davidson had lived peacefully in Sycamore Heights for over 15 years. His backyard oasis, complete with an expansive in-ground pool, was his pride and joy, the result of years of saving and 3 months of construction. Every weekend during summer, the splashing sounds of his teenage children and their friends filled the air, bringing life to the otherwise quiet neighborhood. That tranquility shattered when a certified letter arrived from the Sycamore Heights Homeowners Association. Apparently, a new bylaw had been passed requiring all pools to be covered when not in use, for safety and aesthetic purposes. The letter specifically mentioned multiple complaints and gave Michael 30 days to comply or face daily fines. He knew exactly who was behind this: Patricia Winters, known throughout the neighborhood as Karen, the recently elected HOA board president, whose house overlooked his backyard from its slightly elevated position. For years, she had made snide comments about the excessive noise from his pool, though Michael always maintained reasonable hours and kept the volume down. "Safety concerns, my foot," Michael muttered, crumpling the letter. "She just can't stand seeing people having fun." Michael smoothed out the crumpled letter and read it again, his jaw clenching tighter with each word. The HOA letterhead featured Patricia's signature prominently at the bottom, the flourish in her penmanship somehow looking smug. He glanced out his kitchen window toward her Tudor-style home that sat on the small rise behind his property. Through the large bay windows, he could see her figure moving about, probably watching his reaction with satisfaction. This wasn't the first time Patricia had weaponized the HOA against him. Last summer, it was a noise complaint about his daughter's graduation party, which had ended promptly at 9 p.m. Before that, she'd taken issue with the color of his garden shed, claiming the forest green he'd chosen was a shade too dark, according to regulations. Each time, Michael had acquiesced, wanting to keep the peace. But the pool was different. It wasn't just a structure. It was the heart of their family's summer traditions. His youngest son had learned to swim there. His daughter had hosted her Sweet 16 pool party in that backyard. The annual Davidson 4th of July bash was neighborhood legend, well, for everyone except Patricia. Michael poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon and stepped out onto his back deck. The late afternoon sun glinted off the pool's surface, casting dancing reflections on the surrounding fence. The water was pristine. Michael maintained it meticulously, and the thought of covering it with some ugly top made his stomach turn. His phone buzzed with a text from his next-door neighbor, Jim. Got the HOA letter too? Karen strikes again. So it wasn't just him. Michael typed back, "Yep, thinking about fighting this one." Jim's response came quickly. "Good luck. She's got the board wrapped around her finger since the election." Michael sighed and took another sip of bourbon. He'd skipped the last HOA election, thinking it wouldn't matter much who was in charge. That had clearly been a mistake. Patricia had run unopposed and immediately stacked the board with like-minded retirees who had nothing better to do than police their neighbors' properties. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across his yard, Michael made a decision. He wouldn't just comply with this ridiculous rule. He would find a way to turn it against Patricia. 15 years in this neighborhood had taught him one thing. Sometimes the only way to win was to play the game better than your opponent. He finished his drink and went inside to call his brother-in-law, who happened to be a civil engineer. If he was going to cover his pool, he was going to do it right, and Patricia Winters was going to regret ever sending that letter. Michael wasn't one to accept defeat easily. He scheduled a meeting with the HOA board, only to discover that the multiple complaints had indeed come from a single source, Patricia herself. The other board members seemed uncomfortable, but unwilling